right at 4 a.m. as I go to record this, I had started to watch um, a video from a channel called Flurry Moon about mini brands having books in them now, and apparently having some racy Colleen Hoover. And in the comments section, it had some people had gotten into the topic of like accidentally or otherwise having been exposed to adult content as kids, and there's a sub thread in there of that kind of thing leading to child on child SA, and I threw it out there that like dude, and I've it's been a topic like with my for you feed where I've been watching the Haley Beck thing and this and that. I get a lot of like I don't know if you call it true crime or like things that hit on that. And I mentioned, like I think they had an abbreviation, and I had to kind of sit and like COCSA. Oh yeah, and I was like, I hate to say it, but I think it's more prevalent than anybody realizes or wants to talk about. Um, it's an uncomfortable thing, especially because like I knew when me and Randa split up, I knew I was going to eventually have to talk about this. If nothing else, is like a PSA because it blew me away. Like it took probably over a year after me and her split up for me to like really, because the whole time we were together, she was like gaslighting me to downplay the severity of things, and like looking back on it, I'm like, I still do not know whether I believe she was that unaware or she just refused to see it for what it was, or a bit of both. And that's why I always use the word insidious, because like with the Haley Beck thing, from what I understand, like there's been some things with like her mom or her brother, like this and that, and it's like, well, yeah, it's usually a whole household issue. Uh, Even if everyone isn't being abused, if there's abuse in the house, there has to be like some subterfuge and whatnot. There has to be a lot of other things normalized and a lot of conditioning for the abuse to take place. uh, for example, with Randa, she talked about very casually how um, her baby daddy had grown up. His dad he was a trucker. His dad was a trucker, and like a lot of my generation, at the very least, the image of a truck driver was like, yeah, they probably had some skin mags laying in, and she said flat out, like, even the way it was put to me, the way I understood it was like possibly the first time she ever went over there, which means she would have been a teenage girl. Uh, but one of the first times meeting his family or going over there, there was just like pornography laying there, uh, just out in the open. And I mean, like, I think it may have been kind of like that, like at Mamie and Poppy's, like it wasn't just on the coffee table, but like when we would go visit as kids, like, where it was a long car trip and we got there, if we needed to use the bathroom immediately, like, there was always that, like, hey, Pops, is it okay for the kids to use the bathroom, or do you need to go put anything up in there? So, like I kind of get it or whatever. Like, not saying that's okay, but like I understand how that happens. But like, she was saying that like basically it was very normalized for the baby dad, her baby daddy, Daryl, whatever. Like I won't use full names, but I mean, when pressed, y'all affected my life. Sorry, I'm not saying anything untrue. Uh, but no, like she was kind of saying it to put in context because she said flat out like that Daryl had a porn addiction to the extent that like when she and I had first started dating, or maybe like hadn't even really figured it out like that, but like was hooking up whatever. Um, one of the trips between Monroe and Ashtabula, she flat asked me. She was like, because we were talking about some things, and she had told me he was like the first guy she had really been with, this and that, and she flat out asked me like if zoophile stuff was something most guys were into, and I was like, dude, and I mean, that's the thing. I've been meaning to make like a get to know you video for the channel anyway. Like, I got a policy of transparency. If you have any business asking me something, you're gonna get the truth to the extent that you are entitled. Um, when she asked me that, I was like, dude, I will level with you. Like, hey, uh, I don't think it's that easy to find in terms of like on the internet or what, like, and B, like I've stumbled across it a handful of times. Actually, I think more in print because I'm old and I had to have, uh, I grew up with a perverted grandpa. He had a shed, like a whole shed that there was like a path you could get to the lawnmower basically, and other than that, it was stacked over waist high. Nothing but magazines. It was insane. Uh, but yeah, she asked me like, "Is that something most guys was into?" And I was like, "Dude, no, 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 no. Like, I will level with you, and you're not gonna like to hear this because it involves another chick." But like, I was hanging out with one of my exes, and we were each doing our own thing. Like she was messing around on the computer, I was watching TV or whatever, and out of nowhere, she just randomly was like, "Hey, yo, you want to see a chick get by a horse?" And I was like, I mean, I guess, you know, for 2 seconds. Oh God, okay, no, I didn't, I didn't. Uh, and and that's what I told her. I was like, dude, I wish I hadn't. Like I exposed myself to it or whatever. But yeah, but no, I don't think it's something most guys are into. And that, like, put a pin in that, because that, there's so much that, like, in the moment, I didn't take it for what it was, because she was convincing me there was something wrong with me. And now I cry regularly because I'm like, I messed up, dude. Like, that kid is out there, and he is a straight up danger. Because she had 3 kids, a girl and 2 boys. When I got with her, the girl had literally just turned 8. The middle boy was getting ready to turn 5, I think, and then the little one was right at 3. one of the first like red flag things I remember was we had been doing things. It may have been the first time the kids had been at their dad's because like the first time I went and stayed with her was for Thanksgiving, and I ended up being there like 2 months because like weather hit, something went wrong with the vehicle. It really didn't matter on my end, so I was like, whatever. And I ended up being there like 2 months, and it was like 40 something days before they ever went and stayed with their dad at all. And it may have been when they had been with their dad. But at any rate, the little girl was sitting at the kitchen table doing her homework. The little boy, the middle boy, had I think just had his bath, but this was pretty early on, so no, it wasn't when they had been with their dad. But at any rate, it was pretty early on because uh, it was still when they were like just completely uh, no upbringing. So like we had been out doing something. We get home. She was going to take a shower. While she's in the shower for a second, basically as soon as she's in the shower, middle boy is butt naked. Little girl's sitting at the table trying to do her homework. I'm awkward, like he's barely 5. I'm like, and I know the dad has not been around much, so he's been around girls when they're out. They live in the vehicle. When they're out and about and have to go to the bathroom, they all go together. So like, there's a weird blurring that can happen there. I get it. So like, and that was part of it that made it all like the first few red flags. I was like, okay, it's plausible deniability. It was, and I'll explain that, like, because like the first thing, like I said, the little girl sitting there doing her homework. He is off directly to her right. She is locked into her homework because I hear her holler, "Mom, he's doing it again." She ain't even gotta say what it is. She says, "Mom, he's doing it again." Mom hollers from the bathroom, "I'll be right out," all annoyed. I can't help but poke my head to see he is standing there pulling on himself and just glaring at her. Just and I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, dude!" And I flat told, I was like, "Look, kids." Like she had told me he was probably spectrum and this and that. I was like, "Look, kids discover themselves different ages. My only concern is like, you sure he like just started doing that on his own? Like that's the only thing." And I explained to her, I was like, dude, I got caught doing stuff like that at school. And a teacher pulled me aside and they were just trying to make sure that, like, nobody had, you know. uh, and that's when she was like, no, he's had coordination issues, fine motor skills, da da da. And I'm like, well, either way, he is at that age where he has figured out he is a boy and something's got to be done about that because he can't be doing that. And at that time, we had just started like again was figuring out if we were even dating. I really shouldn't have been there in that context like that. But I was like, I'm not going to be the one to have that talk with the kid, especially the reason her and the baby daddy had split up is because he got caught with images depicting children under 12. And I think I still have a picture of the court paperwork from that thing. And I say this all the time in comment sections. Ohio is insanely lax about that kind of stuff. This man has never been in handcuffs as long as he completes his therapy that it's a program they ordered him to. Uh, if they'd been drugs, it'd be like rehab. It'd be like outpatient rehab because he just has to go to a therapist a couple times a month. It's very expensive, um, but as long as he doesn't screw that up, there will be no record of what he got caught with. A judge would be able to see it, I think. Like if he gets caught up again, a judge will see it. But as other than that, it's it. like a job, won't see it. Like if he goes to apply to get an apartment somewhere near a school, no, I don't believe it exists as long as he completes that program. And that's crazy, crazy work. Never been handcuffed. They took his phone. uh, but knowing that that's what they split up over, and knowing that he grew the baby daddy grew up in a household where there was a very lackadaisical attitude about having laying around. I, I will always believe at the very least that middle boy came across something. I honestly, because there were times that later on, like once we knew there was like once the middle boy had been caught with the little one more than once, and it got to the point we started having to send him to the dad separately and whatnot because he wouldn't take it serious and he wouldn't keep an eye on him. Almost it seemed like it was a screw you, I know what I'm doing, and then he it would blow up in his face. He'd catch the boys somewhere in the closet naked, no explanation for the umpteenth time. It got to the point the dad's telling the kids to lie to us about it. I mean, it's all that. And that's why I say I believe the middle boy may have found something. I think the dad may even caught him and was like, "We're not going to tell your mom that you forget about what you saw. Don't worry about. You don't need to know. You're not going to." As far as that goes, even without anything nefarious to that degree, uh, she would just plop them on YouTube Kids, and this was in the height of there were these like janky Spider-Man and Elsa videos, and like if you know, you know, those things, dude, they couldn't get them off there. They like it's so weird. Uh, and the one that I caught, that I personally saw, I knew it looked off. So like I stood, and I swear it's like they did psychological, like they timed how long would an adult stand there before they gave up and was like, okay, I guess it's because dude, the second I went to walk away, I glanced and it went from like weird but okay to okay now Spider Man's peeing on somebody that quick. Like no build up, no nothing. It was like almost like okay 0 to 60, you gotta corrupt them. The se- you know the second we think the adults have closed the door, it was the weirdest thing. And like everything those kids were into was stuff that like if you go looking is all red flags. Like they were super into robots. I know for a fact the girl was like chatting with somebody and then lied about it. Like when I had first come around, the first time I watched the kids by myself, I'm that's the thing. They were all just used to their mom not paying attention at all and just doing whatever. I sat and watched the girl, and when I called her on it, she like tried to put her hair over her headphone. Like, dude, I'm not that old, and I was a sneaky little two. Actually, me and her ended up close. Like, it's actually really, in general, I miss those kids, dude. Even the little middle one. By the end, I realized that poor kid, for the longest, really didn't think there was anything wrong with what he was doing and felt like I was just trying to take his phone from him. By the end, he was just starting to get it. And when he told his mom the truth about what he had been up to, that's when she got the hell rid of me. Because I was like, well, now that you can't deny it, because at that point it had been like a year. And the day it all blew up and he told her the truth, she came out the room crying. And I was like, dude, she was like, I don't want to hear it. And I was like, I'm not going to say I told, like, all I'm going to say is, like, now that we know the extent of it, and I still don't. I cut him off. I was like, dude, that you need to talk to your mom with that. She came out crying. Da, da, da. I was like, I'm not gonna say I told you so. That's I'm not that heartless. But what I will say is, like, now that we know, like, we cannot home remedy. We've been trying. Like, this takes help that we can't give. I don't know how to fix this. You don't know how to fix this. This she got rid of me. And like, dude, at the time she was talking about like we should have a kid together, and I was like, dude, I wouldn't be necessarily opposed, but like with what I suspect going on, I'm not bringing a kid in the house. That sounds like a victim to me. It turned out to be right. She immediately started dating. Like as soon as we split up, she moved somebody in. Like literally that weekend, uh, got pregnant. Like that, I feel like isn't. And I mean, there's so many little things. They're not even little things. We were at the park, and I watched that middle boy try to lure a kid to one of those like fake logs. He was like whispering, and when he would see the kid react, he would. But he wouldn't just holler and try to get the kid to come over and play with him. But he was trying to lure him over. It was not a good look. There was a few times me and his mom both sat and watched him like try to hurt other kids. Uh, we were getting the car worked on up here over at a friend of mine's house, and had walked over to try to get a pool from somebody, and they had a pool out in the front yard, letting the kids play and whatnot, and I knew it was going to go bad. By the time we got back from getting the pool, of course, youngin's sitting outside the pool, and I'm like, what went on? And she was like, my friend's girlfriend that was watching him was like, oh, dude, the second I went in the house, he doesn't realize we don't have air conditioning, so all the windows are open and whatnot. The second I went in the house, he started talking to all the other kids about touching butts and whatnot. I was like, yeah, yeah, that sounds right. Knew the second the adult went in the house. Didn't even think to look around and see if the windows were open. No, huh? And dude, at that by that point, I said things like just like that to him because it was such a common thing. I'd be like, so you think you all the time catching yourself up because you think you're because it got to that point. I was like, dude, you know you're gonna get away with whatever at home. You know it. Uh, but I'm telling you, not everybody is as easy to get over on as your mom. All it's gonna take is one a curious adult because you always think you got it, but then like one or two follow up questions and it's a wrap. And I hated that it had to be like that, dude. Like I loved them kids. And the whole thing, like when I first met him and saw like not the not that, but even to a degree that because like the reason I recognize those red flags is because I grew up around monsters. And then when I saw how like hyper and like super smart and like probably was at one point a really sweet kid, but he had been so independent and it had been working for him for so long that why would he listen to anybody else? And then with the essay thing, like what he was doing with his little brother, I genuinely believe he had got kind of addicted to it. It was so bad. Like dude, he laid there and pretended to sleep for like an hour and a half because she hadn't separated the sleeping arrangements. She would go lay down with the little one. Tried putting him to bed different times, all this, and that middle boy would get a chance to get at that kid, dude. It got to the point where the littlest one was having like basically night terrors. It hurt me so bad to hear him scream. Oh, I love that kid. I think about like by now the version of him I love doesn't exist. And even with the middle one, when I first met him, I was like, dude, this kid is me. Like they were through. Like if my mom paid attention, and I was like, dude, everything I've been through, this is it. This is why I can prevent this kid from going through the same things. That's why I use that word insidious, because like it was so much was so normalized and so like even with her mom, like when she and I first like that first couple months around Thanksgiving where I stayed, like she would literally be like, she would text me and be like, meet me upstairs and we can lock ourselves in the bedroom and all. And I'm like, dude, there are three, especially like it'd be one thing like me and my little cousins for the most part, and I still wouldn't recommend it. But like we were well behaved enough, you could have left us alone for 20 minutes, half an hour. Them kids, I knew better. I was like, dude, are you insane? And then she would get offended